So, if you've been following me here or on any of my social medias, then you've probably noticed that last month was Artfight month. And with me dropping one of these little guys onto your head every day, you might have also noticed that I've put a lot of effort into taking part this year. Artfight is something I found out about last year, that I had the courage level of a baked potato, so I didn't quite take part. But this year I figured, why not give it a shot? See just why artists have flocked to it over its years running. For the uninitiated, Artfight is an annual art trading game that takes place over July. You pick one of two teams to be a part of, this year's teams being Team Vampires and Team Werewolves. Then you upload reference images of your OCs to the site, and people attack you, a la draw fan art of your characters. It's a riot, and the team with the most points, determined by the amount and quality of the attacks made, wins. Yippee! And if you draw anything like how I do, you get to look at your patchwork quilt of assorted people's random OCs at the end, which is its own reward. And now that Artfight is done, with only one little thing remaining, the results, let's see how it was. This is what it's like to draw every day for a month. So this Artfight, I challenged myself to make an attack on one randomly selected person for every day of Artfight, and this is how it went. I won't be showing you all of my speed draws here, as that'll take us all day, so I've hand-picked out a selection of my favourites so I can flex my artistic prowess to you for your viewing pleasure. Day 1 was, well, interesting. Probably one of my most messy days. A lot of learning and mistakes were made in the depths of the night. Since I ruined my wrist earlier in the day making that week's video, I was already going into it with a hit of fatigue. A plus though is I actually put effort into drawing shoes for once, which actually turned out to be a massive game changer for me. The next couple days passed without incident. I dipped one toe into bright colours for day 2 and the other into furries for day 3. But on day 4 I felt a little shift in me. A shift in an anti-line art direction. I started doing it all painterly-like, and I couldn't stop. This is, out of all the things I learnt, is one that I learnt really quickly. And it's that, dear God, I hate doing line art. Pretty much all of my pieces have less than 5 layers once I realised that about myself. Some were even done on 1 if you discount the sketch. And scrolling through, I can definitely see the trend here, at least from the perspective of one who's intimately familiar with the process of every single one of these artworks. But actual line art work becomes fewer and further between the further we got into the month. Which is probably one of the reasons why this is still one of my favourite pieces I made for this. Every time I look at it, I can see myself learning things. Contrast, the baked-in lighting, and those raw shapes where you can still see all the texture in my little brush. The next selection of days was a process of refining, figuring out what worked for me, falling out of love with line art, trying to make the broken relationship work, then giving up on it. But it also included a teasing foray into the world of backgrounds. I have a very obvious crutch when it comes to backgrounds. I'm sure you can guess what it is, but I'll give you a minute to think about your answer. I tried to ramp up the complexity of backgrounds over these couple of days, coming to a head at day 11, in which I thought it would be a fun idea to draw Sturgeon Shipyard with only one blurry screenshot for reference, to mixed results. And I honestly thought that this was going to be my most complex background if you asked me then, but I was a fool with 20 more dailies to do. Moving on, I think painting hit its peak at day 13, in which I settled on a balance of painted elements and defined, shapy, quote-unquote lines. Apart from this character being sick as fuck, it's crazy the amount of things that you learn about the way you create when you sit down to do it. I think this is the point where breaking the rules of sketch to lines to flats to shadows started to feel less like a cardinal sin and more like a process I had a handle on. If you've been keeping an eye on the speed draws over here, you can probably tell that I just slap down colours and shadows the moment I decide, great, sketch is done. And goddamn is it a process that works for me. I think my mind had been poisoned by early 2010s art tutorials, and trying to work myself out of the rigidity of itemized list of exact processes has been of a hell of a long-lasting migraine. But back to the piece. Whew! Getting to work with extremely defined light sources can be a ton of fun. And if you think about it, a fiery explosion is just some funny coloured clouds. Day 16 brought out a completely different side of me. A side that loves to make myself suffer. Not in the incredibly complicated and time-consuming way, but in the I have poor sensitive little eyes, so I certainly did not expect myself to willingly draw things under the eye strain category way. Multiple times even. I knowingly and willingly exposed myself to eye-exploding saturations on an already super blinding screen, but it was fun to try and up my prescription. Besides, this one was super fun and shapy and angly, and I wish I pushed it further. I also wish that flat block colors didn't get crunched between the jaws of the Instagram compression algorithm, but alas, we cannot change the past. For day 21 we have this funky fella, and one that I thought about tones a lot during. It's pretty mid-tony for one that has an eye strain warning attached to it, but this one was all about the drama if you ask me. Making something up for a character you know next to nothing about is a pretty good time, I gotta say. Once you get over the fear of messing up some stranger's deep lore, I think going with mood pieces is like the play. I would rather get a wacky piece of my OCs that makes no canon sense than a pic of them standing in a generic pose. And I mean this not as a diss, but in a please go wild and make fun art way. Put some strange hands in there, give them a complicated facial expression, and interaction. I think I would have died from boredom if all I did was simple standings or storyless poses. Please, live the drama. But maybe not the drama that happened with the mods not long after this or something. I honestly have no idea what happened, and considering I only saw people talk about it for a few hours in the middle of the week, I doubt I'm in the minority here. And the other mods gave the go-ahead to keep art fighting as well, so, well, we got over it. There are only a couple moments of sheer panic and a trending hashtag. But moving on, for day 24, with a little problem I have. And whilst day 18 planted the seed of this one was the real fun part of it, gore warning included. And less really is more if you mean less to mean blocking out a large section of your background in black for dramatic purposes. And like, this kind of semi-found footage, blurry, cryptid photography style is a damn riot to make. Harsh shadows and lights, the implication of a background, and a funny little dude covered in blood. What's not to like? And I certainly like this one a fair shake, especially considering the absolutely despicable state of the sketch for this one. This here is the real proof that sketches do not have to look good in any way whatsoever. Day 25 was another one that my brain put before me, and one that looks like absolute shit under the compression algorithm. I wanted to experiment with sizes, and a super wide one was one thing I hadn't really tried yet. Does anyone else remember the Endless Forest? This one was sort of inspired by my vague memories of that game. The wide expanses of trees and nothingness. It was a great challenge to do something so background focused. Certainly one of, if not the most complex background I did, but also one that allowed me to hone in on the importance of form and implication a lot. Being able to imply a distant tree with a single pale line really brings this one to life, and fading things out around the character creates interest. Oh, and this fat tree here brings in some fun framing. Like, limits breed creativity, and so much of this month allowed me to put something into practice that I learned a long time ago. Backgrounds are characters too, and chasing after that glorious background category scene point bonus, I finally threw myself into it, trying to curb my deep love for painting clouds. Did you guess that my crutch was clouds? I mean, I can have some cloud cover as a treat, I just gotta remember to put some other things in there too. And two I did with this one. I slapped a whole swath of trees onto my canvas instead. But day 30, whew, give it up for day 30. This one, ooh, I like this one. Get this, it's a monkey in a tub. Wild. This one was all vibes and colors and shapes and all about being moody. There really isn't much more mood that you can get than sitting yourself in a bathtub with a frown on your face. This one was going to be a washing myself and my clothes moment, but this character was seriously lacking in the clothing department, so we just went for it anyway. I really loved working on the background and colors for this one. Spent a ludicrous amount of time doing just the background. Getting the tiles and reflections looking all nice was all worth it. Getting that little spill of light onto the bath mat was very tasty. I'm pretty proud of how the mood for this one came out. If day 13 was understanding character painting, this one is understanding backgrounds. And there we have it, monkey in a tub. There is one little thing here that I have neglected to mention though. Revenge. The act of making an attack against someone who has attacked you, for friendlies. Which is honestly the part of Artfight that makes it all worth it. It's one awesome thing to receive a nice comment on your work, something to throw down our friendly like to, but it's a whole nother thing to receive artwork of your OCs. Every time the little notification number next to attacks ticks up, I had a brand new and unique come to Jesus moment that left me sobbing on the floor. And of course, such an act required revenge in return, even if I was a bit slow on it. So revenge we did. These ones were, I admit, a bit more slapdash unfortunately, as I am a lazy sack of shit that loves to do things post-midnight. But it was more relaxing to not have to finish each piece within a one-day time limit. Taking a little break from one is the best way to make it better. And with a sketch done one day and a render another, my brain has mad plenty of time to dive into the code of how to art good. And its conclusion has and always will be, just delete it, lol. But seriously, giving yourself a bit of space between sessions does really allow you to think about how you want to approach a drawing, which, is always nice. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but I like to think that I'm a pretty good artist. But doing this much concentrated practice really taught me a lot about how I draw, and even in such a small time, I can see a pretty noticeable confidence and improvement in my artwork. I have much more confidence and trust in my workflow and abilities, that what used to be a lengthy and detailed sketching process to make a piece of artwork that I felt okay about, can now turn into the world's worst 2-minute sketch into a full piece that I love. If you have any artistic inclination at all, I highly recommend joining in next year, or even just drawing some random gift art for someone, creators or otherwise. Getting to draw like this is a combination of many good things. The variety, interpretations, practicing a bunch of things you don't usually think to do is a very hearty meal in the mouth of an artist. I can draw my little twink OCs all day, fill them with my own preferences, and stick myself right into my zone of comfort. But doing this challenge allowed me to branch out and try new things. Working with things that are unfamiliar to you is the number one way to get the brain juices flowing and push past your boundaries to make something interesting. So in all, Artfight was a really good experience for me. Drawing this much made me realize how much I really just love drawing. Being able to push myself in a different direction each day, for better or for worse, and constantly scratching at an ever-growing creative itch. And boy did that itch grow. There's one thing they don't tell you about being creative, and it's the fact that it's an endless cycle. I found myself again and again wanting to pick up new creative projects all month. I now have a rather fat list of creative things I want to make. Comics, to animation, to sculpting, to games, to writer, to what have you. So hopefully a few of them will find themselves to fruition one of these days, or months, or years. But what I'm getting at here is, I love art. And don't mind me if I start steering this channel in a more artward direction moving forward. The journey is ever changing and your captain does not have a map. And there is some amazing feelings that Artfight let me experience. There is something so nice about making artwork just for one person, and seeing every one of those individuals that I drew for react for my artwork was probably the most serotonin I've ever had rush through my body at once. Look at these comments. Hey, not too closely. But the joy of receiving an all-caps emoji spamming message from a budding furry teenager thanking you for drawing their beloved OC is one truly unmatched. And lastly, I'd like to add a thank you, truly, to all of you who left nice comments and all of you who attacked me, to all those who watched and all those who liked. Thank you and cheers to next year. Not in the incredibly complicated and time-consuming way, but in the I have poor sensitive little eyes and I certainly didn't expect myself to willingly draw things under the guy strain category. Wait, that's a fucking long sentence, isn't it?